You again. Thanks so much for the update. And joining me now is the Resources Minister, Josh Frydenberg, out of Melbourne this evening. Minister Frydenberg, thanks so much for your time. Welcome back to the program. We've heard what Bill Shorten had to say today in terms of changing this scare campaign, if you like. But the AMA has also said that by keeping this, not unfreezing the rebate and keeping it till 2020 is actually a co-payment by stealth. What do you say about that?
Well, it's not, but the key point about what Michael Gannon, as the head of the AMA, has said is that Bill Shorten's scare campaign around Medicare is absolutely baseless. And that's not just his view, it's also the view of Professor Christine Bennett, who was Kevin Rudd's hand-picked advisor on his hospital's review back in 2009. I think everyone sees Bill Shorten's desperate tactics for what they are. In fact, under the coalition, Laura, bulk billing has gone up. It's gone up from 79% under Labor to 85% under us. Under Labor, they spent $17 billion a year on Medicare. We're now spending $23 billion. And it's not just Medicare, which we have a great story to tell in health. We've actually nearly tripled the amount of drugs that are on the PBS. We've nearly doubled the amount of money that's going to public dental
schemes. I do want to drill down into this Medicare rebate freeze, because while you say bulk billing has gone up to 85% under the government, I accept that. But you're wanting to keep this freeze till 2020. And Dr. Michael Gannon's argument is that if that freeze stays in place, doctors will eventually, over the next 4 years, be forced to stop bulk billing their patients. Do you not accept that?
Well, we're very confident that bulk billing levels will stay at the record highs that we're seeing. And in fact, as you know, this was a freeze that was put in place by the Labor Party when they were in government. Now, we've obviously got a tight budgetary situation where spending an enormous amount of money on health, more and more every year, certainly more than the Labor Party ever did, whether it's around public hospitals or other aspects of primary health. So we're focusing on health care. We realise how important it is to people across the country, and the story and the facts is a very good one to tell, whereas Labor's desperate tactics have now been blown out of the water by the head of the AMA himself, as well as by Professor Christine Bennett.
I accept that when you talk about the so-called privatisation of Medicare. The AMA has blown that out of the water today, but Michael Gannon made it very clear that in health and hospitals, this Medicare rebate, the ongoing freeze to 2020, is their #1 issue. So is there any provision for the government to review that over the next 4 years, or is 2020 done and dusted?
Look, our policies are our policies today, Laura, and the fact is, when it comes to public hospitals, as you just referred to with Michael Gannon talking about that, we've increasing the spending by $2.9 billion as agreed by the Prime Minister and his fellow members of COAG. So we are investing record amounts in health. But the fact is that Bill Shorten is very desperate, and when the facts don't suit his argument, he chooses to change the facts. And that's what's happened around this privatisation campaign.
I understand why you've done this for budgetary reasons, but if it does come down to it, those bulk billing rates start coming down and doctors are forced to pull away bulk billing. Are you saying that the government is not leaving any room to move, no agility to be able to unfreeze those rebates any earlier?
Look, we're very confident that we've got the policy settings right. No matter what we did, the Labor Party would always try to scare Medicare users and say that, you know, bulk billing rates will change. But the facts are that bulk billing rates have gone up significantly.
To be fair, this is not Labor, this is the AMA.
Yeah, and look, the AMA has just blown out of the water Bill Shorten's scare campaign on the privatisation. Now, he's choosing to change tack today because but he's choosing to change tack today, Laura, because his other argument has now been blown out of the water. And we want to get this debate around who is the better economic managers for the future of this country. We've just had consumer confidence numbers which are up. We know that our growth numbers as a country is better than other comparable jurisdictions like the United States, like the UK, like Japan, like Canada. We've seen Australia now into its 25th year of consecutive economic growth. We just cannot risk a Labor government with just less than 2 weeks to go Who wants the unions back in charge, which is what Bill Shorten will see? Who wants income tax to rise? Who wants company tax to rise? Who wants capital gains tax to rise? Who wants property taxes and negative gearing to rise? I mean, that is what Bill Shorten is giving as an alternative to the Australian people. He has no economic plan other than more taxes and ultimately more spending, which will have to be paid back by future generations.
Just one final question on this. If doctors start to pull away bulk billing and that starts to drop from the 85% increase under the coalition, will you revisit it?
Look, our policies are our policies, and we're very confident we've got the settings right.
OK. Same-sex marriage, we will have a plebiscite by the end of the year. Remind us, where do you stand on it?
I support same-sex marriage. I'm like Penny Wong and a number of other members of the parliament. I started with a different position as she did in 2010. I've now met with so many people across my electorate and elsewhere, and I've heard the passionate views expressed, and I do think that the time for same-sex marriage has come. As the Prime Minister's made very clear, we had a discussion in the party room, an extensive one. Passionate views were expressed, and we decided on a plebiscite. That's our position, and I'm very confident that it can be conducted in the most constructive ways possible, and also that we'll get the best possible result at the end of it.
Do you have some sympathy for Penny Wong, who has lived this? Yes, her political stance on this has been a bit different than her personal one over the years, but she said today that heterosexual politicians fail to grasp the hatred gay and lesbian Australians will endure during this plebiscite. Do you accept what she says about that?
Well, look, I'm very sympathetic with what Penny Wong has said about the hurt that is extended to people who are gay or lesbian, and the fact is that there are intolerant people out there. I fully accept that, and this anguish has in some cases led to suicide. It's terrible situations, and that's why it's incumbent upon leaders of all political persuasions to speak out in the favour of a constructive debate in which, you know, passionate views are expressed, but they're done in the best way possible and not in a degrading or a humiliating way. And certainly that's what I will continue to do. I know Penny Wong, Malcolm Turnbull and all my parliamentary colleagues, no matter their particular view on whether they want same-sex marriage or not, I'm sure that they will conduct themselves in a very constructive way. Yeah,
Scott Morrison pointed out today that he's faced hatred and bigotry for being against same-sex marriage. Do you really think the hatred and bigotry is as fierce against the no voters than it is the yes voters?
Well, like I'm sympathetic with Penny Wong, I'm sympathetic with, you know, my colleague and friend Scott Morrison, because no doubt there has been some intolerance extended to him, and, you know, intolerance is not the preserve of any political party or any particular group in society. But at the same time, I've heard from many gay people and lesbian people about the intolerance extended to them. So, you know, it's not about choosing sides here as to who's been hurt the most. It's about saying no intolerance is acceptable and that we need to speak out about it no matter what our particular view is on the issue of same-sex marriage.
Josh Frydenberg, we thank you so much for coming back on The Latest. We hope to speak to you again. 10 days to go.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Laura.
Malcolm Turnbull says it would be tragic